This is the Pan-African Drive, a platform that is meant to inspire and motivate the current generation of young Africans in the actualization of their respective dreams, preaching the message of peace and national unity, as well as revitalizing the Africanization policy that speaks about good governance, social justice, democracy, human rights, and most importantly, the African unity. And we are super honored and very privileged to be in a distance conversation of walking encyclopedia, a man who has climbed a very massive height in his career and academic ladder. He's empowered Africans in his country, South Africa, and across the shores of the nation state, South Africa. He's Dr. Malusi Mncube. He's going to feature on the platform tonight as he speaks with us on what I call evaluating Africa, political, economic fabrics of our continent. Greetings to you, Doctor, and welcome to this platform on Teledar TV, sir.
Very much, and greetings to all the viewers and to all the listeners. Greetings.
It's an opportunity to have you featured all the way from the Southern African nation of all, South Africa on Teledar TV, the nucleus of all information, education, and entertainment, not only in the Gambia, but by extension the rest of the African continent, sir.
Everybody has to play their part. We must all exert effort and merit. So whatever little contribution everybody is making, we aggregate all that together. That's how we move Africa forward. And I'm very, very grateful for this opportunity because we are slowly, gradually reaching critical mass of Pan-Africanism, of becoming a global superpower in the foreseeable future.
That's a great one to add quickly. You are very popular in the southern part of the continent and outside the shores of the continent of Africa. But in the western part of Africa, you haven't worked here. So not too many people know about Dr. Mncube. Can you just tell us from an academic background, who is Dr. Mncube in a very concise manner because of time, sir?
In terms of my academic background, I was outside the country for many years in exile during the political days. Then I came back to the country in 1992. I worked in the corporate world. I worked in the NGO world. Then I joined university until I got my PhD in 2024. Then I wrote books and I wrote several journals, and I speak on many speaking engagements about Pan-Africanism, about the global political economy. I do an interface analysis or audit of where Africa stands. Are we marginalized or vulnerable, and what is it that we can do about it? And what have we achieved so far? What are our weaknesses? What can we learn from them? And how do we push our way forward? So that's who I am. The state of Africa, to me, it's my passion. It's what is sacred to me. I live, sleep, dream, do everything about Africa, and I'm very confident with where we are going, notwithstanding the problems that are there. We've got serious problems, but this is what will make us a very strong people, our resistance, our not giving up, and being focused to where we are going. So people mustn't be intimidated by the problems that Africans have. We must talk about them every time and solve them at all times. And in solving those problems, that's what makes us a great people.
That's great to hear from you. For those of you watching out on Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram, we say to you a massive salute and respect to you, because in the absence of your viewership and support, there is no Teledar TV. We are here for you. Doctor, back to you. You are a household name in the southern part of Africa. You are almost described as a political prophet. In recent time, I listened to one of your proclamations where you described Africa as a global superpower. And when you speak, students, young people listen to your voice. When you describe Africa as a global superpower, was that a political prophecy, or is that a life in transition, or is that a projection of how you viewed Africa? Is that a reality? And if yes, what tangible evidence can you point out to validate your assertion that Africa is a global superpower, sir?
First and foremost, as Africans, we have our own knowledge systems, we have our own imaginations, we have our own logics. Notwithstanding that we went through slavery, colonialism, and neocolonialism, the history of Africans doesn't begin with slavery. It begins with us as great people, as creators of galaxies, as creators of life itself. And every human being in the world, regardless of what their color is, comes from African people, from the black people, from the black Malinese people. So we start as a great people. And our perspective of living and how we live our life, first as Africans, we live from a spiritual perspective, because it's from the non-manifest to the physical manifest of who we are. Now, when I say Africa is a superpower, because that's what we've already been. What just happened, the intervention that happened, is just an aberration, and that is being corrected, because as our ancestors says, as it was in the beginning, so shall it be in the end. And even to those who are arrogant, history is showing every day, has shown always, that there is a limit to their power. All their empires have come and they've gone, and now they are in confusion. As you can see, what is happening all over the world, what is happening in what they've deemed to call themselves the first world, what is happening in Europe, what is happening in the Americas. And with the passage of time, it will be like what goes around comes around, and we are coming, and things are going to be the way they were. You cannot conquer nature, even though they think they can conquer nature. So that's how we are a group, a superpower. And part of my sacred duty, part of my intellectual duty, is to motivate our people wherever they are. I know some of our people have lost hope, which is natural, because we are not the same. We don't have the same threshold. We don't have the same outlook. But that is the power of educating each other, as much as our ancestors educated us. The Kwame Nkrumahs, the Sakho Torres, the Amilcar Cabrals, Malcolm X's, the Marcus Garveys, the Thomas Sankaras, they played their part. They played their part because it was passed on to their DNA, because this is spiritual, it's not only intellectual. And I'm doing it, and you and I are connecting, because it's not only political, because political is spiritual, and it will not stop. Even if I'm not there anymore tomorrow, it's going to go on, and people are going to be shocked what will be happening all over the world. You can even look already, their house of cards is crumbling. They will try to clutch at straws, but it will not happen. Things will be the way they are. There's nothing new under the sun.
Doctor, when you speak, there is so much hope and conviction from you, and that is the spirit an average African needs. But I draw your attention to the social fragmentations across our continent. If you look at the Central African nation of all, the Central African Republic, it's terrific there between Islamic and Christianic backgrounds. If you look at one of the giants of Africa, if not the most important giants of Africa, in Nigeria, and Africa's most industrialized, developed nation, in your own nation in South Africa, you have a social fragmentation. There is a condescending opinion, sorry to say, from South Africans, or a minute portion of South Africans, so to speak, not everyone, to non-South Africans, like we experience a xenophobic attack with Nigerians and Zimbabweans and other Africans. And you look at Nigeria, the Igbos, Hausa, and Yorubas, you do not have, the conversations of the Yorubas, the Igbos cannot be found. So you have all of these social fragmentations, and where does your hope and conviction come from when it comes to describing Africa as a superpower, considering all of these immeasurable fragmentations in our society, considering your own country as well as a case study?
Right. To directly answer your question, to begin with, first, we must understand the nature of life. Life itself is conflictual. Life itself is a life of opposites. For you to understand what warmth is, there must be cold. For you to understand what joy is, there must be tears. So life itself, nobody can escape that. That's why when we are born, the next thing when you are born, whether you live for 200 years, 100 years, or whatever, the next thing, the opposite of that, is you have to transition. And some people say you have to die. So having said that, if you have 10 kids, my brother, or you have 5 kids, ask any mother or any parents, your kids will not be the same. We've got different attributes. We've got different analytical packages. We are not the same, but we can reach a general consensus of who we are. So to be tribal, to have a tribe, because being European, that's a tribe, being American is a tribe, being African being a tribe. So you can have different teams in Gambia, but when it's going to be a national squad, you come together. So differences, when you become mature, differences have to divide us. But if you're still ignorant, they will divide you. That's why other people divide themselves in a very bad way tribally, and you don't have to. But differences bring about the harmonization of strengths. And this is what makes things powerful, because in a soccer game, we all play different positions. We don't play the same position. So if we're all playing the same position, there would not be a soccer game. Even a boxer himself is talented, but he uses two hands. And besides that, he has a coach and other people that look after him. And I can go on and on. If you look at a piano, if you look at a guitar, it's got many strings, and those strings give you different tones. So differences, what humanity now, what Africans now have to be mindful about, and what they have to inculcate in their spirit and in their intellect, is that tribes and nationalities don't have to divide us. You can get and you can extract what is good out of that. So yes, if things, because we live in a conflictual life or a life of opposites, that does not have to do you down. You can use that to build your strength. You can use that to build your knowledge, because how else can you be knowledgeable if you don't know the opposite side of something? How else can you be knowledgeable if you, when you're first sent to school, you are not first sent to school when you are 60. You are first sent to school when you start at 7 or 5 years old, right? And you are taken through those stages. That is the opposites of life. That is the conflictual nature. Conflict is not just fighting. Conflict is also ignorance and emancipation of intellect, you understanding. So you go through the stages. Now we've reached a stage whereby we've decolonized Africa. It's not perfect, right? But that was a whole process. As like I told you, as it was in the beginning, it will be in the end. So those who are still trapped in the mentality of a divisive tribalism, of a divisive nation, it's up to us to come forward and to make them see the light. Because as humanity, we don't all see the light at the same time. We don't all get enlightened at the same time. But for those who see light, it is our duty to impart that light. I am what I am today because of the works of Kwame Nkrumah. There are things I never knew, but when I studied the works of Kwame Nkrumah, when I studied the works of my grandfather, when I studied the works of Malcolm X, when I studied the works of Thomas Sankara, I became enlightened, and there is no end to knowledge. So, my brother, don't be scared that we are different and certain people are divided. When you see that challenge, whether it's in Nigeria, South Africa, wherever, you call it xenophobia, call it whatever you like. At a macro level, it even happens in families. Your mother, our mothers and fathers love each other in the beginning. The next thing, they divorce. You know, they go their separate ways. So that, but it's up for us to fix that, and that can be fixed. And we are today, because people like Kwame Nkrumah, people like Patrice Lumumba played their part for me to be there. I am not Malusi because I'm totally independent. Nobody is. Sum total of all the positive things I have learned in life, and that has made me to be committed, as Patrice Lumumba was committed, Alewa was committed, as Haile Selassie was committed, as Robert Mugabe was committed, as Joshua Nkomo was committed, as Mandela was committed. So in the life of opposite, you have to be disciplined, and you have to be committed, and you have to be positive.
Yeah,
You
that's great
arouse
to hear
magic
from
in
you,
others.
Doctor. Right away, those of you that are watching on social media, we salute you big time. Please share this platform here on Teledar TV. That's a Pan-African Drive, a platform that is meant to build bridges between and amongst African by virtue of sharing our commonalities of problems and finding solutions to these constraints or challenges. Remember, until the Africans learn to own their own problems, find their own solutions, they won't be able to write their own stories. Quickly to you, Doctor. 1 hour is not enough to have you on the show for you to enlighten African. When you look at the Agenda 2063 that speaks about an integrated Africa and Africa to be a force to reckon with, to sit on a dining table of other civilizations and compete in every ramification, a continent that feeds and strengthens itself in all departments. How do you reconcile the 2063, Agenda 2063? Do you think we verify, we're some 37 years, when I say verify, in terms of our readiness, our economic readiness, our social readiness, our political readiness, are we close to 2063? Are we far away? And if yes, or if no, what are the tangibles that justify and validate your argument? Are we close or we are far from actualizing Vision 2063 or Agenda 2063?
Actually, Agenda 2063 is unfolding every day. It's happening every day. And number one, we must be mindful, and I want to encourage all Africans in Africa and all over the world. All times in your life, in our life as Africans and individually, in whatever you're pursuing, whether it's education, sports, whatever, we always do an audit. You must always do an audit where you are. So you do an audit of Agenda 2063. You look at foundationally, structurally, what is it that you are fighting against, amongst other things, because there's structural, fundamental things, and there's also peripheral things, right? The problem with Africa was colonized, still neo-colonized. And what do I mean by that? Agenda 2063, normatively as an economic blueprint, is brilliant, but now it has to be implemented. It's being implemented, and everybody, all hands must be on deck. It's not just the problem of the leadership and the elite. Everybody, me and you, has to play a part. Now, Africa is financially subordinated. We do not have monetary and fiscal monetary policy autonomy. We don't have that. What do I mean by that? All African central banks are forced to have foreign currency reserves, most of them denominated in US dollars. You have to understand why we reached that stage, right? And even our debt is denominated in US dollars. So our currencies as such do not have any money. So first, that's where it is structurally. So strictly what I'm saying, even right up to today, all of Africa's economy is not owned by Africans, because we are subordinated by the US reserve dollar currency, and we are also subordinated because we do not have a viable, strong industrial base in Africa. Forget about African countries from Nigeria to Egypt to South Africa. These atomized so-called sovereignty. There is no sovereignty. There was never sovereignty. And this is what Nkrumah was tell Africans globally from 60 years back. I'll give you why I say there's no sovereignty, because I'm answering your question about Agenda 2063, because that's why we must unite and come together. Just the other day, the United States of America illegally broke sovereignty, which is normative, because might is right. And they went and illegally kidnapped a leader of a sovereign state, Venezuela. Now, for those who are political thinkers, or for those who have common sense, they are telling you, we don't care what you think. There's no sovereignty. We will tell you what to do. You do as we tell you. Now you can imagine if an African country had done that in Africa, or is an African country capable to do that to America, or to do that to China or Russia or any other country? We can't, because we do not have the wherewithal, we do not have the apparatus, we do not have the power. Now, what I want to ask Africans, if the United States of America is a global superpower, if China is a global superpower, if Russia is a global superpower, are we not ambitious to be autonomous and to defend our sovereignty so that it's not conditional? Because that's what America has just done. We can come to you, to anyone at any time. So it has been normative. So Agenda 2063 can only happen because, first and foremost, economically, that's what I mean by financial and physical, we have to come together. Number two, Africa doesn't have a serious industrial base. And by industrial base, we must have our own manufacturing base, our own technological base. All the technological infrastructure we use in Africa is all foreign. And that is very dangerous. It means we are not independent. I'm talking of your Google. I'm talking of your Amazon. I'm talking of your Facebook. I'm talking of your Huawei, Tencent, Alibaba. We do not. So already we are colonized within those fundamental structures, and that's what I mean. So in order for Agenda 2063 to be viable, we have to deal with those issues. And these are the issues I talk about every day for people to understand that. That's why even up to today, of all the brands of cars you see all over the world, or you see in Africa, none of them is African that has our intellectual property rights. These are very serious things. And number two, all our finance, all our currencies, even the credit that we allocate, it's financialized. What do I mean is financialized? It goes back, it's repatriated back to Europe and to the United States of America. That's why the two main problems we have here in Africa, number one, we have a macro problem whereby we are dominated by the imperialists, the West, our economy. I'm talking about our economy. And number two, they've got a comprado class. Some people call them puppets, our leaders, some of our leaders, people like Thomas Sankara and people like Traore fight against. They call them, as long as they are rich, right? And they get rents, what we call rents. They get paid rents by Europe and the Americans. They don't care about the rest of Africans. That's why the rest of Africans are jobless and unemployed. They don't have businesses. Their small businesses don't
Doctor,
grow.
please,
That is the problem.
sorry not to cut you off. You spoke about, I want to draw you back to where you describe us as a global superpower. Now, reconciling your latest argument right now with the fact that most of our, you mentioned Facebook and TikTok and all the social media platform that are foreign owned. Let's even forget about that. Let's come to the natural endowments of our continent, Africa. My own Liberia, endowed with the gold, the diamonds. Your own South Africa, gold, diamonds. Botswana, Namibia, gold, diamonds, and chocolate, and what have you. You come to the Gambia, cashew, granite, Senegal, granite, Nigeria, and so to speak. Aren't we building castle in the air when we describe Africa as a global superpower? Because we are not manufacturing these products into finished goods. Instead, we produce them and then sell them into the global market. And that is to say we are exporting jobs and importing poverty in our people, because they take these goods from us, manufacture them into different products like vehicles, airplanes, and bring them back to us for higher prices. We are exporting jobs and importing poverty. Now, how do you reconcile this with your proclamation of Africa being a global superpower? Where is the missing puzzle, Doctor?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, sir.
I can hear you, sir. Yeah, my proclamation is very correct. For instance, when you're studying at school and you say one day, I want to have a PhD in physics or a PhD in economics, in whatever discipline you choose, right? You tell yourself that's what you are and that's what you're going to be. And that's how I achieved what I wanted. Even when we were fighting for South Africa, we said South Africa is definitely going to be free. There will be black majority rule, even though it was 40, 60, 70 years away. But that was our objectives. You have to have objectives. You have to know who you are. So this is what I'm saying, because we are on the path, because Africa has built the whole of the world. It's the frontier of development because we in it. Yes, we do not own. They've commodified all our resources. Whether you're talking lithium, we're talking forestry, you're talking fisheries, maritime, whatever, they've commodified everything. But we are there and we are beginning to make headway slowly but surely, gradually, with setbacks here and there. So it's important to know where you are, what you want to be, and proclaim yourself what you want to be. It's like being Muhammad Ali, a boxer. You say, I'm going to drop Floyd Patterson on the 4th round. I've trained very hard for it and all that. And you go with that confidence and you make it happen. And many people have made it happen. And Africa has politically gotten free because certain people sacrifice their lives. So it can be done. Yes, for now, we are not there 100% there. But what I can tell you, they cannot wish us away from the chessboard of the game of the political economy of the world. We are there. And what we are going for, what we are exerting, our passion and our objective is not just to be as America. We must be as good as China, as good as Russia, as good as America put together. This is what I instill in people. So yes, a journey of 1,000,000 miles begins with the first step. And me, I took my first step long back. My steps that I took, they were passed on from Nkrumah and others. So you must be like that, my brothers, and all those who are listening. You must have that confidence. They cannot wish us away. Even if you do an audit for the future prognosis where we are going as Africans, we have a demographic dividend. We are going to be having the most educated, because most of all the other continents, they are having a problem of their people getting old and they can replace. So great things are definitely going to be happening. Already what is happening now, we are going into alternative payment systems. We are de-dollarizing and we're keeping it quiet. It might not be coming out publicly because certain things don't have to be done publicly. So yes, I'm definitely, with no shadow of doubt in my mind, and I'm telling the Americas, I'm telling Europe, Africa is going to be a global power. It's even actually going to surpass Europe and America and China and all of them put together. It's going to happen, my brother. I have no doubt. I can prove it scientifically. I can show it. Elimination by substitution is going to happen. Definitely, no doubt.
That's a great deal from you. You are listening to a walking encyclopedia, a museum of knowledge, all the way from South Africa, a lecturer at the University of Johannesburg in South Africa. Doctor, Chinua Achebe says that a chick that will grow into a cock can be known at a very day it hatches from eggs. I come back to you. An Africa that is expected to realizing her potential are described by a political prophet like you, the global superpower. What's your message to African leaders in terms of domesticalizing our resources? Because if you have a South Africa, mind you, before Africa becomes a global superpower like you proclaimed, there are nations that should serve as the greatest catalyst. You have your own South Africa, you have Nigeria, you have the Egypt, you have the Algeria, so to speak. What should be the focus of these nations in not just ignoring the national sovereignty, but considering regional and the continental conversations? What should be the focus?
The focus is very important. Our focus, it's unity, right? Already I can tell you the structure that is there. The structure of the African Union is a brilliant structure normatively. And for those who architected it and made it happen and to make it work right now, yes, I know sometimes a work in progress, people are disappointed. You get disappointed when you're training for the World Cup soccer and all that. Not everything in the training goes right. So the fact that we have the African Union is excellent. The fact that we have 8 regional economic communities that are there, yes, they might not work as much as people want, right? But practice makes perfect. We work at it every day. And for those who critique, it's good that you critique, but we need constructive criticism, even those who are destructive, because they catalyze you to prove them wrong. You must also do the work. Anybody who's gone to school, for you to pass your high school, right? You don't just pass your exams. You read for them. You don't just read for them 1 day, 2 days, or 3 days. You read throughout the whole year. It's the same thing. We are up against very powerful forces that are against Africans. So the structures are already there, and I've mentioned them to you. The African Union, we've got the African Import and Export Bank that is already doing balance of payments in terms of covering trade of the African Continental Free Trade Area. Some of these things are being done very diplomatically because we do not want to announce them. Look at what happened to Venezuela when they were announcing their moves, that they're being bankrolled by the Chinese, etc. No. So because they were in the backyard of the Americans, that's how the imperialist America looks at it. That's why they pounced on them, because now they're affecting the power of the US reserve dollar currency. But we are making movements. And this is part of what I'm saying to people. And it's not to say we can't do better, right? The one who is critiquing as an African, it's very important also that you play your part, right? As much as you will critique, I'll say to you, okay, show me what is it that you're also doing. It doesn't have to be anything big. Are you going to every church? Are you to every institution in Africa? Are you going to all the mosques of Africa? It doesn't matter our different religions. To say we must unite as Africans and come together as Africans. Are you doing that? What is it that you are doing? Are you writing proposals to different institutions in Africa how to make things better? Are you marching and are you conscientizing the whole of Africa about our ancestors, about Traore, the wonderful job he's doing? Tell me what part you are also playing. Every individual is very, very important. It doesn't have to come out in the newspaper. It doesn't have to come out anywhere else. I am what I am today because of my parents, because of my grandparents. And none of you knows them from the paper. But I am what I am. I have the confidence. I have the love of Africa, and I have the love of humanity because of that. So when I speak, it's also my ancestors when I speak. When I speak, it's Kwame Nkrumah speaking. It's Marcus Garvey speaking. It's Malcolm X speaking. It's Khalid Mohammed speaking. Why am I saying their names? Right? Because they made an effort so that their names are in the wind so that I can read about them. I can know about them. That is very important. So anybody who critiques, people mustn't think Africa being a superpower is just going to happen in 3 days or 4 days. Play your part. It's
not
cumulative.
It's not going to happen in 3 days or 4 days. Play your part. That's where we're going to take our first break tonight on the Pan-African Drive. And once we have returned, we continue this conversation with Dr. Malusi Mncube. Welcome back on the Pan-African Drive here on Teledar TV, your best online outlet, not just in the Gambia, but by extension, the rest of the African continent, where we inform, educate, and entertain. when we are live with Dr. Malusi Mncube, live from Johannesburg, South Africa. Doctor, welcome back shortly from the break. I come back to you here. Somebody says that the falling of dried leaves is a warning to the new ones that one day they will fall. Recently, we saw a total departure from the global treaties. Those of us who are products of international relations, you learn that no state has the right to undermine the integrity of another nation. But we saw recently the President of the United States captured, should I say, kidnapped the President of Venezuela, and no one is talking about it. How exposed is Africa to such a departure for international treaty? Should we have a reason to be scared?
Okay. Yes, we have every reason not to be scared, but we must be emboldened. Africans must stop being scared. We must be prepared, like Traore, like Mandela, like all our leaders, to die for Africa. So stop being scared. There's no time to get scared. Glory awaits Africans. Number one, it did not begin with President Maduro. Let me give some background. First and foremost, Patrice Lumumba of DRC Congo, right? The sovereignty of Congo, they did away with. The Americans went the CIA and they went and they illegally, extrajudicially murdered Patrice Lumumba. In 2003, they went for Iraq. They said they were weapons of mass destruction. They did not get the assent of the United Nations, the very United Nations Security Charter that they are a part of. So they did away with sovereignty. They don't care. Again, might rules. Let's go to 2011. They went for Muammar Gaddafi, right? Wrong or right, whether they're going to say he's wrong or right, we can see what type of a person American President Donald Trump is. They went and murdered extrajudiciary head of state, Muammar Gaddafi, right? NATO, who's talking about it? So every time Africans are being reminded your sovereignty means nothing. In 2022, the Americans and Europe, they freezed $300 billion foreign reserves in Western banks of Russia. Russia is a sovereign nuclear power. That's when the whole world started to panic. That's when we started coming with alternative systems. To begin with, now America started pulling out of all these multilateral organizations, the World Health Organization and many others. They pulled off because now they can see that it's not serving their purpose. The whole idea why they were telling you about democracy and all that, they are actually a global military dictatorship and empire. When they went from Maduro, it's because there is a challenge now. Things are changing. A challenge that is coming from Russia, that is coming from Russia and a united China, and that's coming from BRICS. People, after they took 300 billion of Russia, everybody panicked. Now we do not respect the dollar anymore. It's still very powerful, but people are betting on their national currencies. Central banks all over the world, including in Africa, they're beginning to hold money in gold because gold is real money. You cannot hack it. You cannot fake it. There's nothing you can do because it's solid. So we are going back to commodities. As that could be a topic for another day. We can talk about that. So the taking of Maduro off a president, I want people, Africans, to think about it. They were telling the whole world that us, the Americans, I will repeat, they were telling the whole world that we don't care about the United Nations Charter as much as we are the ones who crafted it after Second World War, right? Might is right. I repeat, might is right. You will do as we tell you, otherwise, right? So Africa doesn't have deterrence, what they call deterrence. That's why they cannot destroy Russia up to now. That's why they cannot destroy China, because Russia has nuclear weapons. So even if they're going to go to war with Russia, they use a proxy war, even with China, a proxy war. But in Iraq, they went directly. In Venezuela, they went directly. So African thinkers, and I'm talking to all African leaders, we do not have a deterrence. Even a small country like North Korea has a deterrence. What is that deterrence?
Doctor, you speak of deterrence. I was going to come there. You said that we must not be scared, but we must be ready. I was going to ask you, what protective cocoon, if you like, what protective mechanism does Africa as a continent have to put in place to ensure that we act proactively in preventing a potential territorial invasion from any Western power, CKA the United States, since they are the #1 police officer of the world? Do we have the mechanism in place to ensure that we prevent what happened to Venezuela and what happened to other Africans in previous history?
The mechanism is there. It just must be upgraded. every year we have what we call APSA, the Pan-African Security Architecture, and they do have a management executive body that's in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. It's called the Peace and Security Council, just like the United Nations Security Council. These are military people that go into policies and look at the continental early warning systems, what could be the dangers and they do a lot of great work. People mustn't expect all this work to be coming out in newspapers and you celebrate about it. You can talk loud as Donald Trump, but Donald Trump is talking loud, but he cannot afford to beat Russia or China. So we do have those structures. It's already there. We need to upgrade them, and we need your ideas, and we need all other Africans who are listening, whether they're trade unions, civil society organizations, how they can coalesce together to be one structure so that we have one army, we have one intelligence, we have one foreign policy, right? And we have one economic policy. That is what is going to give us scale. There is no scale vis-a-vis when South Africa alone is doing deals with China. China is an 18 trillion to 22 trillion GDP per year economy. What is it South Africa alone that they can discuss bilaterally on a serious note? So for Africa to realize its superpower, it must hail in terms of market, in terms of production, industrial production, in terms of its technology. That's how we can begin to raise that type of funding. Because if you look at the GDP of Africa right now, it's about 3 trillion US dollars, right? That is the revenue of Google per year. That is the revenue of Jeff Bezos per year. That is the revenue of Hathaway Berkshire per year. That's one company. So in order for us to realize that scale of capital, we have to come together. And already those movements are there within the regional economic communities. They might be poor looking right now, but already the foundation is there. It's up to you, the viewers and listeners and me, and all civil society organizations in Africa and in the diaspora to keep on putting pressure, because that's how things work. They work through focus. It's not only the leaders in Addis Ababa who put focus. What are we doing as Africans in Gambia, the greater Gambian, everybody in Gambia, to put focus, to show that we are focused to attain, to actualize Agenda 2060? What are we doing with us, all of us South Africans? Who are the drivers? I am part of the drivers in Africa. You are part of the drivers. Your newsroom is part of the drivers. And this is not something that is just done per weekend. You do it every day, right? There are areas that you have to make sure you keep on putting that pressure until you actualize it into reality. So that's what we have to do. So yes, there is already a basic structure within the African Union Commission, which is the Peace and Security Council. It's a military structure. We even have the African Standby Force, military force of all the regions in Africa, because in Africa we've got 5 regions. We've got Southern region, which is the SADC. We've got on the Eastern region, the Western region. We've got ECOWAS, which covers the Western region. And we have the Northern and the Central one, which is ECAS. They are already there, and they've actually, some of them, done good work in DRC Congo, in Central Africa, in Ethiopia, Somalia, with problems. People must remember, you only become a champion, you only gain strength when you have conquered. So you are not going to conquer just by talking. We have to act, all of us, no exception.
Doctor, you said a very important point that you can only conquer what you confront. Quickly, that come to you. Africa as a continent, 54 nations, recognized one. We produce the highest voting bloc at the United Nations. When it comes to global peace and security, in terms of a peacekeeping mission, Africa has the highest number when it comes to that. Why is it that, despite of a massive number in terms of our contribution to peace and security around the world, and our voting bloc, 40%, so to speak, the highest from any continent, why is it that we haven't had a number or an African nation to serve as on the Security Council of the United Nations as on a permanent seat level? Have we been compromised because of the puppets in the form of leaders across our continent? What's your thought on that?
Now, for the benefit of the listeners, yours, connect the dots with everything that I'm trying to clearly explain. Everything that I'm answering your question. It scaffolds together. It comes together to answer the very question that you are asking about. For us to be at the United Nations right now, look at our economic background in Africa. We are atomized countries that don't have scale, and they cannot grow in strength. So that cannot resonate in the United Nations Security Council. If you look at the powers that are in the United Nations Security Council, all of them have got nuclear powers, including China itself. You cannot become part of that club, right? Whether you want to call it fair or unfair, if you do not have nuclear weapons. That's point number one. Then you must have scale of production of economics. This is what China has proved. It's only about in 2003, if I'm not mistaken, when China took a decision that they were going to be an economic power, because at that time they were not a superpower to challenge America. America was still dominant, unchallenged by anyone. And I'm not talking only militarily, where Russia managed to challenge. I'm also talking economically in every facet. In fears, they've just done it in the 20th century. So if China had that mindset, their leadership, and to be serious, focused, to answer why we are not in the United States, why is our leadership not doing it in what you call in Africa? Because we do have nuclear scientists in South Africa, we do have nuclear scientists in Nigeria, all over Africa, we do have them. It's a question about seriousness of purpose, focus, and leadership. And also the non-state actors, you and me, our whole environment, whatever we took when we are talking, when we are debating, when we are dancing, when we are praying in church or in the mosque, whatever we do, what is sacred to us is to make Africa great again. And the only way we are going to sit at the United Nations Security Council is not going to be handed to us. We're not going to be invited. You fight for it, right? South Africa became South Africa because people like Mandela had to spend 27 years in jail. People like Krisani, one of our commanders, had to die. Sabelo Palmer and many others had to die. You go to the history of Mozambique, Samora Machel. You go to the history of Amilcar Cabral, of Zimbabwe, right? There is sacrifice that is made. Of Guinea-Bissau. Absolutely. Guinea-Bissau, exactly. So for us to sit in the United States Security Council, we are not going to sit. It's not going to be given to us. We must reach a certain threshold where men must be men and women must be women of the African cloth. We must prove that we are people of power, we are intelligent, we are committed, we are cultured, highly cultured, and will not take nonsense from everybody. Once we start doing that in our school curricula, in everything that we do, as China became a superpower in 40 years, they started about 2003. Right now, they've become a $20 trillion economy, but on a purchasing power parity, they even beat the United States and combined with Europe. Can you imagine? So if they can do it, we can also do it. But yes, we have different histories and all that, but it can be done. And we have a window of opportunity right now because America is no more dominant. They are one of power is now fully being contested.
Yes, we now have a multipolar world.
Let me quickly warn about the multipolar world. I want to warn Africans about the multipolar world. A multipolar world doesn't mean you cannot be attacked. China and Russia cannot defend everyone everywhere because their strategic duty calling is to first defend their nation. They cannot overreach and spread themselves thin. That's why even up to now, you find people like President Maduro have been kidnapped and nobody's saying anything about it, right? Probably it could be trapped. They're trying to widen China's to overreach themselves military or Russia. So it's the responsibility of Africa to develop the machinery and the apparatus to develop our own nuclear deterrent.
It is the responsibility of Africans to develop our machineries, to develop our continent. Those of you watching us on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram, I say to you, to Southern African nation people in South Africa, I say to you, in KwaZulu-Natal, I say to you, Sanibunani Mzanzi, Geya Nembengelela. To French-speaking nations, I say to you, merci de vous supporter. This is the Pan-African Drive to the Gambia, I say to you, in Wolof, Jelejef, we won't ever forget you. I will never forget you for supporting us here. I say to you, Domalamuna Fati, Domalamusa Fati, say, I don't know to the Mandinga to say, Ndenyanela Dunia, so Abaraka to the Manjagus, I say to you, Lifi man. That's the Karonika too. Swahili speaking nations, I say to you, Asante Nsara, when you quit to see, we support you. We appreciate your support big time on the platform here, the Pan-African Drive to the Liberian people. I say to you, Kasai Adama, ka platform kanaka G. To Nigerians in the Yoruba-speaking nation, we say to you, Bao Nisha, Bao Lomo, Otutu Jumenta. Long time no see to you. To the southeastern part of Nigeria that dominantly Igbos to say to you, one name, the number, Ikaraka Ijia, Mechuku Abiyama, Amama Siamasi, Oshimini Atata, Ikue, Mechuku Kike, Odoku Akataka, strengthening all of you, wherever you are, under the sound of my voice, to the northern part of the country of Nigeria that is dominantly Islamic, will say to you, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is the Pan-African Drive, a platform meant to build bridges between amongst African doctors. We are driving to the end of this conversation of 1 hour Pan-African Drive here on Teledown TV. If you were seated right before the 54 heads of state and government of Africa to speak truth to power on a summary of what our challenges are and what is the solutions to the challenges, what would be your message? What would be your message?
My message to the leaders as well is I'll tell them straightforward. Say, first and foremost, I greet you elders, and I want to thank everyone who has played a part positively and who are still playing a part to bring about the superpowerdom of Africa. But at the same time, I want to fearlessly critique amongst you Africa's leaders who are a comprado class, who are billionaires in Africa in a sea of poverty. If other African families can live on 200 US dollars a month or 200 US dollars in 3 months, what's wrong with African leadership? Instead of being billionaires, all that money is expended for the revolution of Africa to make Africa here. So amongst Africa's leaders, we've got comprado, sellout, puppet leadership. That's what I will tell them. And that's why people like Thomas Sankara had courage. That's why people like Traore had courage. Remember, they took out a leader who was there, and the French started saying he's not, Traore is not democratically aided and all that. So where's the democracy of Donald Trump taking Maduro? Where is that democracy? When the European Union, after Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mauritania did what they did, they put sanctions on other African countries, on those countries. Where were they getting from? As much as they were putting sanctions, but they were busy selling munitions and weapons to Israel to erase Palestinians, the double standards. We know these things, this is what they were doing, but they're telling us we are not democratic, but at the same time, they're feeding the machinery of Israel, of Netanyahu, to maim and mass murder Palestinians. So where's the double standard there? So I want to big up, and our leaders to big up, and I would say to our leaders, cut 70, 80% of all your salaries and all your estates. Let that go into a sovereign wealth fund of Africa, to put it into education, to put it into artificial intelligence, to put it into agriculture, to put it into research and development, into weaponry, ammunition, nuclear development, etc., etc. African leadership must stop mimicking the billionaire lifestyles of America and Europe. It's a time for revolution. So these are part of the people who are doing Africans down. This is what I'll tell the leadership. And they know it themselves up. And this is what Traore speaks about. This is what Thomas Sankara speaks about. And this is what the leadership of the AES speak about. Over and above, there's also a nation in Africa. I implore them at every time, because they've got scale, they've got the population, and they live next door to a revolutionary, and that revolutionary is Traore. That population, I'm not only talking to them, I'm talking to everybody else, but because they are all over the world, they're everywhere. I want, when people think of Nigerians, they must think of Nigerians as revolutionary or more revolutionary than Traore.
Doctor, I'm afraid you've done so well. We're running out of time. Just before I take leave of you, I want you to speak to your people in your native language or dialect in South Africa. What's the final words of South Africans? You can replicate that in English language after you have spoken in their language. Just 45 seconds, sir.
Ngibonga abantu abasemzansi bangizalile ngakhula ngafunda la ngalwa la ngaze ngakhula ngafunda ngasebenza mina manje senginika umphakathi lento engiyiyo ukuthi nathi fanele sibe amaqhawe, sifane noShaka, sifane noNkosi Hintsa, sifane noNkosi Sikhukhune, sifane noNkosi Tshwane, sifane noNkosi Bambata, sifane noMandela, sifane noSabelo Phama, sifane noChris Hani, bese sifana noNkwame Nkrumah, sifane noMalcolm X noMarcus Garvey. Siyanibonga abantu bomphakathi, masibambaneni, iAfrika mayibuye.
Your final words in English language in 15, 20 seconds, sir, before we take leave of you.
sign language, I was first thanking my South African people that I was born, bred, and buttered in South Africa.
Yeah,
I
now you're
grew
speaking. Now
in
you're
an
speaking to the
environment.
rest of the continent, the leadership, the masses, in 15, 20 seconds, sir.
So, what I want to say to everybody who's listening, to every African or any progressive humanity, regardless of your color, it's a time we're living in very interesting times and very dangerous times. And I predict it's going to get very messy. Financially, economically, it's going to affect everyone. We have a depression globally that is coming. The topic for another day because I don't have much time. So be very, very careful about what's coming. And I want to say to most people, those who can keep coins of silver and gold, it's more what you can keep physically in terms of money. Paper money is very soon going to be worthless in not more than 5 years. Be very, very careful. The economy of the world is going to implode. That's why there's joblessness all over the world. That's why you're even seeing in America itself, millions of people are sleeping in the streets. And everybody play a part. And those who can invite me anywhere in Africa for programs, because this is what I do, for giving talks, I am willing to come anytime, to spend any time, any corner of Africa in the diaspora, so that we connect and we reinforce each other and we get these programs going. So I want to hear from you. The host will give you my website address, which is www.malusimncube.com, and my mobile phone number for country code, which is South Africa, is +27, and my mobile number is 7886814151. I'll repeat, country code +27 7886814151. You can contact me anytime. I am willing. Let's do this thing.
It's a beautiful experience having you on the Pan-African Drive on Teledar TV. We are super honored on behalf of the management authority over Teledar TV. Massive salute to you, Dr. Mncube, there from Johannesburg. To the rest of the African people, this is a Pan-African Drive, a platform meant to build bridges between and amongst African by virtue of our sharing our commonalities of problems and finding solutions to the constraints, should I say, challenges or problems. Let's unite, like the Gambians will say in Wall of Union, Benala, New Japalante, Nit Moin Garabam. Tony Michael Howard, CKA News Socrates. Bye-bye.